The Alpha Lord's touch burned like fire in moonlight, asterisk, asterisk. A cinematic romance screenplay, asterisk, asterisk. In the beginning, there was only silence and shadow. The ancient forest stretched endlessly beneath a sky that knew no sun, only the cold and distant gaze of the moon. It was here, in this forgotten realm between worlds, that destiny first whispered its cruel and beautiful truth, that love would be both salvation and suffering, that touch would burn like fire and heal like moonlight, and that two souls born into separate fates would collide with the force of collapsing stars. His name was spoken in whispers. Lord Alpha. The title carried weight in every syllable, heavy as iron, sharp as winter wind. He was not merely a man but a force, a living storm contained within flesh and bone. His eyes held the color of amber caught in eternal flame, burning with an intensity that made even the bravest warriors look away. Beneath his skin ran blood mixed with something older, something wilder, the power of wolves, of ancient packs made when the world was young. He ruled the northern territories with a hand both firm and just, his people loyal not from fear but from reverence. They had seen him fight. They had watched him protect. They knew the scars that covered his body like a map of all the battles he had survived, all the darkness he had conquered. But there was one scar he could not show, one wound that never healed. It lived deep in his chest, wrapped around his heart like thorns, the memory of what he had lost, of what had been taken from him before he even understood what love meant. His mother had died bringing him into this world. His father had fallen defending their people from the shadow creatures that crawled from the void, and the woman he had once believed would stand beside him forever had betrayed him, choosing power over devotion, leaving him hollow and cold. So he learned to rule alone. He learned to be stone when his heart wanted to be flesh. He walked through his castle halls at night, the moonlight spilling through arched windows, painting silver paths across marble floors, and he felt nothing. Nothing but the endless echo of his own footsteps. Nothing but the weight of a crown that felt more like chains. Until the night she arrived. She came with the storm, though whether she brought it or it brought her, no one could say. The sky tore open with lightning, rain hammering down in sheets, and through the castle gates rode a figure cloaked in midnight blue, her hood pulled low, her horse white as bone and just as spectral. The guards called for the Lord Alpha, their voices tight with uncertainty, because this woman, whoever she was, radiated something that made the air itself tremble. He descended the stone steps slowly, his presence commanding silence. The rain soaked through his dark tunic, but he did not seem to notice. His gaze fixed on the rider, on the way she sat perfectly still despite the chaos of wind and water around her. When she finally lowered her hood, the world seemed to pause. Her face was luminous, as if moonlight had learned to take human shape. Her eyes were pale silver, holding depths that spoke of ancient knowledge, of secrets older than kingdoms. Dark hair fell in waves around her shoulders, and on her brow rested a circlet of silver adorned with a single moonstone that pulsed with soft light. She was breathtaking. But more than beauty, she carried power. It radiated from her in waves, magic pure and primal, the kind that could not be taught, only born. "I am Seraphina," she said, her voice carrying easily through the storm, melodic and clear. "Princess of the Moonshadow Court, keeper of the lunar flame, and bearer of a message written in starlight and blood." Lord Alpha's jaw tightened. "You have entered my territory without permission? Give me one reason I should not turn you away." Her silver eyes met his amber ones, and something passed between them, recognition without understanding, a pull neither could name. "Because the void is awakening," she said quietly, "and if we do not stand together, everything you have sworn to protect will turn to ash." The words settled heavy in his chest. He had heard whispers of the void stirring, of shadows growing bolder, of creatures that should not exist slipping through the cracks between worlds. He had dismissed them as rumors. But looking at this woman, at the certainty in her gaze, he knew she spoke truth. "Come inside," he said finally, turning toward the castle. "We will talk," as she dismounted and followed. Neither noticed the way the moonlight seemed to follow her steps, or how the shadows around Lord Alpha grew darker, as if light and darkness themselves had chosen their champions. The council chamber was vast and circular, its domed ceiling painted with constellations that seemed to move in the firelight. Seraphina stood before the great hearth, her hands extended toward the flames, though she did not seem cold. Lord Alpha watched her from across the room, his arms crossed, his expression unreadable. "Tell me everything," he commanded. She turned to face him, and in the firelight, her features seemed almost ethereal. "The void is not just darkness," she began. "It is absence, the opposite of creation. For centuries, my people have held the barriers between worlds, using ancient magic tied to the moon cycles. But something has changed. Something or someone is breaking the seals from the other side. Who? I don't know." Her voice carried frustration, rare vulnerability. "But I have seen visions. Cities burning, forests turning to dust. And at the center of it all, a figure wrapped in shadow calling your name." His blood ran cold. "My name? They want you, Lord Alpha. Your bloodline carries something they need. Power from the first wolves, from the original pact between man and beast." She stepped closer, urgency in every movement. "If they take you, if they corrupt that power, they can tear the void wide open." He wanted to dismiss it, wanted to call it fantasy. But the conviction in her voice, the fear he saw flickering behind her strength, it was real. "Then what do you propose?" "We bind our powers together, moon and wolf, magic and strength. My people's knowledge combine with your protection." She hesitated, then added softly, "It is the only way. Binding magic is not temporary," he said, his voice low. "It would tie our fates together, our lives." "I know." Her silver eyes held his. "But I would rather risk my fate with yours than watch the world fall into darkness." For a long moment, neither spoke. The fire crackled. Outside, the storm began to quiet. Finally, Lord Alpha nodded. "Then we begin tomorrow. Tonight you rest. My home is yours." "Thank you," she whispered, and something in her expression softened, just for a heartbeat. As she turned to leave, he found himself speaking before he could stop. "Seraphina," she paused, glancing back, "why did you come to me? There are other lords, other warriors." Her smile was sad and knowing. "Because you are the only one strong enough to survive what's coming. And because ... double quote." She trailed off, shaking her head. "Good night, Lord Alpha." When she was gone, he stood alone in the firelight, his hand pressed against his chest where his heart beat too fast, where something had stirred awake after years of silence. He did not yet have a name for it, but the moon did. And she was watching. The days that followed were strange and intoxicating. Seraphina moved through his castle like moonlight itself, bringing a luminescence to corridors that had known only shadow. She studied ancient texts in his library, her fingers tracing words in languages long dead, while he trained his warriors in the courtyard below. But inevitably, their paths would cross, in hallways, in the gardens, at meals taken in the great hall where they sat across from each other and talked of strategy, of history, of everything except the tension that crackled between them like lightning waiting to strike. He found himself seeking her out, asking questions he already knew answers to, lingering when he should have left, and she did the same. Her laughter became familiar, a sound that made something in his chest unclench. Her presence beside him felt natural, as if she had always been there, as if some part of him had been waiting for her arrival without knowing it. One evening, as twilight painted the sky in shades of violet and gold, he found her on the castle's highest balcony, staring out at the forest beyond. The wind played with her hair, and the moonstone on her brow glowed softly. "You come here often," he observed, stepping beside her. "It reminds me of home," she said quietly. "The moon court is built in the treetops, suspended between earth and sky. From my window, I could see forever. Do you miss it?" "Sometimes, but I chose to leave, to come here." She glanced at him. "Do you ever wish you could leave? Walk away from all this responsibility?" He considered the question carefully. "Every day, and never." She laughed softly. "That makes no sense, doesn't it?" He turned to face her fully. "This is my burden, but it is also my purpose. Without it, I am nothing. You're wrong." Her voice was gentle but firm. "You are Lord Alpha, yes, but you are also just him, the man beneath the title. And he matters too. No one had ever said that to him before." The words settled into his bones, warm and unfamiliar. "You see me differently than others do. Maybe I see more clearly." Her silver eyes searched his face. "Or maybe I just see what you won't let anyone else witness." The space between them felt charged, electric. He wanted to touch her, wanted to close the distance and discover if her skin was as soft as moonlight suggested. But he held himself back, knowing that once that line was crossed, there would be no returning. "The binding ritual," he said instead, his voice rougher than intended. "When do we perform it?" "Tomorrow night, under the full moon." She hesitated, then added, "Are you afraid?" "Always. But I've learned to act anyway. That's the definition of courage." She smiled, and it transformed her face, made her seem younger, more human. "I'm afraid too, if it helps." It does. They stood together as darkness fell, two figures silhouetted against the rising moon, and neither spoke of the truth they both felt, that the binding would change more than their magic. It would change everything. If this moment touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe and leave a like. It helps us bring more stories like this one. The ritual took place in the sacred grove at the forest's heart, where ancient trees formed a natural cathedral and moonlight poured through the canopy like liquid silver. Serafina had spent the day preparing, drawing symbols in the earth with ash and silver dust, arranging crystals in patterns that hummed with barely contained power. Lord Alpha arrived as the moon reached its zenith, dressed in simple black, his chest bare to receive the markings she would paint upon his skin. She waited in the circle's center, clothed in white that seemed to glow against the darkness. Her hair was unbound, cascading down her back, and her eyes reflected the moon above like twin mirrors. When she saw him, her breath caught, just for a moment, but he noticed. "Are you ready?" she asked as he stepped into the circle. "Yes." She moved toward him, carrying a bowl of luminescent paint made from moonflower petals and her own blood. "This will hurt," she warned softly. "The magic will burn through you, searching for your essence. You must not resist, I understand." She dipped her fingers into the paint and reached up, beginning to draw symbols across his chest, ancient runes of protection, connection, power. Her touch was featherlight, but everywhere it landed, his skin blazed with heat. He gritted his teeth, muscles tensing, but did not pull away. "Breathe," she whispered, her voice soothing. "Let it flow through you." He focused on her face, on the concentration in her expression, the way her lips moved as she murmured incantations in the old tongue. Her proximity was intoxicating. He could smell moonflowers and rain on her skin, could feel the heat of her body mere inches from his. When the markings were complete, she stepped back and raised her arms to the sky. The moonlight intensified, becoming almost solid, pouring down to engulf them both. The symbols on his chest began to glow, burning brighter and brighter until he thought he might be consumed. Seraphina, he gasped, pain lancing through him. Immediately she was there, her hands pressing against his chest, her own skin beginning to glow with silver light. I'm here, she said fiercely. I won't let it take you. Hold on to me. He did. His hands found her waist, gripping tight, anchoring himself to her solid presence as the magic raged through him like wildfire. He could feel it, her power merging with his, moon and wolf becoming one, their essences intertwining until he could no longer tell where he ended and she began. And then, in a rush of sensation that stole his breath, it was done. The light faded. The pain receded. They stood pressed together in the circle's center, both breathing hard, both glowing faintly with residual magic. Lord Alpha looked down at Seraphina, at her upturned face, her parted lips, her eyes wide with wonder and something deeper. We're bound, she whispered. I can feel you, your heartbeat, your strength, and I feel you. His voice was rough with emotion. Your light, your power. He paused, then added, your fear. Her eyes widened. You can sense that? All of it, everything. His hands were still on her waist, and he realized he was trembling. Seraphina, what have we done? What we had to do. But her voice shook too, betraying uncertainty. We're connected now, for better or worse. For better or worse, like a vow. Like a promise. Unable to stop himself, he lifted one hand to cup her face, his thumb brushing her cheek. She leaned into the touch, eyes fluttering closed, and in that moment, he knew the truth he had been fighting. This was not just necessity. This was not just strategy. This was inevitable. Seraphina, he breathed, and then his mouth was on hers, claiming her with a desperation that shocked him. She gasped against his lips but did not pull away. Instead, she pressed closer, her arms winding around his neck, kissing him back with equal hunger. The world dissolved. There was only this, the taste of her, moonflowers and magic, the feel of her body against his, soft and strong and perfect. The binding had opened something between them, torn down walls they had both maintained, and now there was no barrier, no protection, only raw, honest need. When they finally broke apart, both were shaking. Lord Alpha pressed his forehead to hers, his breathing ragged. This complicates everything. I know, she whispered. We should stop. Should pretend this never. I can't. Her hands tightened in his hair. I've tried. Since the moment I saw you, I've tried. But I can't. He pulled back just enough to look at her, to see the truth written plainly on her face. Neither can I, and so they surrendered. There in the sacred grove, beneath the watching moon, they gave in to what had been building since their first meeting. They loved each other with a ferocity that left them both branded, marked by more than magic. And when dawn finally came, painting the sky in shades of rose and gold, they lay tangled together in the grass, his cloak spread beneath them, her head on his chest, listening to the steady rhythm of his heart. What happens now? She asked softly. Now we fight. His arm tightened around her. Together. Together, she echoed, and for the first time since arriving in his territory, she felt something she had not expected to find. Hope. But hope, like love, is a fragile thing. And darkness was already moving, watching, waiting for its chance to strike. The weeks that followed were perhaps the happiest either of them had known. By day, they prepared for the coming battle, training warriors and strengthening defenses. Seraphina taught his soldiers how to recognize void creatures, how to fight beings that had no true form. Lord Alpha shared his knowledge of tactics and strategy, of how to turn terrain into advantage. They worked side by side, their bound powers making them formidable, their connection allowing them to anticipate each other's movements, as if they shared one mind. But it was the nights that belonged to them alone. He would come to her chambers after the castle slept, moving through shadows like the wolf he carried in his blood. She would be waiting, bathed in moonlight that poured through her windows, and the sight of her never failed to steal his breath. They would love each other slowly, learning every curve and hollow, every place that made the other gasp. He discovered that she was ticklish behind her knees, that she hummed old songs when she was content, that she cried when overwhelmed by emotion but would never admit it aloud. She learned that he carried nightmares behind his eyes, that he touched her as if she might disappear, that he whispered her name in his sleep like a prayer. They spoke of everything and nothing, of childhood memories and lost dreams, of fears they had never shared with anyone. He told her about the woman who betrayed him, about the hollow ache it had left behind. She told him about the pressure of being princess, of having her entire life dictated by duty and destiny. "Sometimes I wonder who I would have been," she confessed one night, lying in his arms, tracing the scars across his chest, "if I had been born someone else. Someone ordinary. You could never be ordinary." His fingers played with her hair, mesmerized by the way moonlight turned it silver. "You burn too bright. So do you." She shifted to look up at him. "Do you ever regret it? The binding?" "Never." The word was immediate, certain. "It gave me you." "I would endure 1,000 bindings for that." Her eyes shimmered with unshed tears. "I love you," she whispered, the first time either had spoken those words aloud. "I love you so much it terrifies me." He captured her face between his hands, his amber eyes burning into hers. "I love you beyond reason, beyond sense. You have become my entire world, Seraphina, and I will protect you with everything I am. Promise me something," she said urgently. "Promise that no matter what comes, you won't sacrifice yourself for me. Promise you'll survive." A shadow crossed his face. "I can't promise that. Please." Her hands gripped his wrists. "I need you to live. Even if I fall, even if—" He silenced her with a kiss, deep and desperate. "We both survive," he said against her lips. "Or neither of us does." That's the only vow I can make. It should have frightened her. But instead, she felt only love, vast and consuming and eternal. They fell asleep, wrapped around each other, and neither noticed the shadow that moved past her window, or the way the moonlight suddenly dimmed, as if something had passed between earth and sky. The attack came without warning. Lord Alpha was in the training yard when the sky tore open. Not with light, but with absence, a rip in reality itself, bleeding darkness. Void creatures poured through like oil-made flesh, shapeless and terrible, their forms shifting and impossible to track. They moved with unnatural speed, overwhelming the guards before anyone could react. He roared orders, his voice cutting through the chaos, calling his warriors to formation. His body shifted, bones cracking and reforming, fur erupting across his skin as he gave in to the wolf within. In seconds, he was no longer man but beast, massive and silver-furred, his eyes glowing amber with rage and power. He tore into the void creatures with savage efficiency, his teeth and claws finding purchase where swords could not. Around him, his warriors fought valiantly, but they were losing. There were too many creatures, and more kept coming through the tier. Then moonlight blazed across the battlefield like a falling star. Seraphina descended from the castle walls, her hands raised, silver fire pouring from her palms. Where her magic struck, void creatures dissolved, screaming sounds that hurt to hear. She moved with lethal grace, destruction and beauty combined, and Lord Alpha felt his heart swell with pride and terror. She was magnificent, and she was in danger. A creature lunged at her from behind. He saw it happening as if in slow motion, saw her turning too late, saw the darkness reaching for her throat. He moved without thinking, covering the distance in a heartbeat, slamming into her and taking the blow meant for her. Pain exploded through his shoulder as the creature's essence burned into him. corruption spreading through his bloodstream like poison. No. Seraphine's scream echoed across the battlefield. Silver light erupted from her in a wave, obliterating every void creature within 100 yards. The tear in the sky sealed itself with a sound like reality snapping back into place, and then there was silence. Lord Alpha collapsed, his body shifting back to human form, blood pouring from the wound. Seraphina dropped to her knees beside him, her hands pressing against the injury, her magic pouring into him desperately. "Stay with me," she sobbed. "Please, you promised." "We both survive, remember?" His hand found hers, weak but determined. "Had to protect you, you idiot." Tears streamed down her face. "You beautiful, stupid, brave idiot." He wanted to say more, wanted to tell her he would do it again, would always choose her safety over his own. But darkness pulled at him, cold and insistent. "Love you," he managed, and then the world went black. Seraphine's wail of anguish shook the castle walls. She gathered him into her arms, holding him against her chest as moonlight poured down around them both. Her magic fought against the corruption, battling for his life, and she did not stop, would not stop, even as her own strength began to fail. "You don't get to leave me," she whispered fiercely. "You don't get to make me love you and then disappear. Come back to me." For a moment, nothing happened. His heart had stopped beating. His chest did not rise. Then, slowly, impossibly, moonlight began to glow beneath his skin. The corruption burned away, driven back by the combined force of their bound powers. His heart stuttered, caught, beat once, twice. His eyes opened, amber and alive. "Seraphina," he breathed. She kissed him desperately, tasting salt and blood and relief. "Never again," she said against his mouth. "Never protect me like that again." "Can't promise that," he said, a ghost of a smile on his lips. "Then I'll just have to protect you right back." Around them, his warriors cheered, the sound rising like a victory song. They had survived. Barely, but they had survived. But as Seraphina helped him to his feet, both leaning on each other, neither saw the figure watching from the forest's edge. Neither noticed the way shadows gathered, darker than night, or heard the voice that whispered on the wind. So the wolf and the moon have bonded. Perfect. Everything is proceeding exactly as planned. Tell me in the comments what part of their story moved you the most. Your words mean more than you know. Recovery was slow and agonizing. The corruption had nearly killed him, and though Seraphine's magic had burned it away, the wound it left behind went deeper than flesh. Lord Alpha found himself weakened in ways that terrified him, his strength diminished, his connection to his wolf form unstable, his dreams plagued by shadows that whispered promises of power if only he would surrender. Seraphina never left his side. She poured her magic into him daily, slowly rebuilding what had been destroyed. She fed him, bathed him, held him when nightmares made him cry out in his sleep. And he let her, pride forgotten in the face of vulnerability he could not hide. "You don't have to do this," he said one evening, his voice rough with emotion. "You have duties. Your people, you are my duty now." She pressed a cool cloth to his fevered brow. "And you are my heart. So stop arguing." "Stubborn woman, you love it." He caught her hand, bringing it to his lips. "I love you." "More than I have words for." Her expression softened. "Then show me. Get better. Come back to me fully. I'm trying. I know." She kissed his forehead gently. "And I will be here for every step." But as days turned to weeks, a new tension grew between them. Not of love that remained constant, unwavering, but of fear. The attack had proven they were vulnerable, that their enemies knew about their bond and would use it against them. And worse, it had revealed a terrible truth. If one of them died, the binding would drag the other down with them. Lord Alpha had sensed it when his heart stopped beating, had felt Seraphine's life force beginning to fade along with his own. Only her magic had saved them both, but it might not work a second time. "We need to talk about it," she said one night, as they sat together in his chambers, firelight dancing across the walls. About what? But he knew. He had been avoiding this conversation. About what happens if one of us falls in battle. "The binding is permanent." "I know." "Then you know we're a liability to each other?" Her voice was steady, but pain flickered behind her eyes. "If our enemies realize they only need to kill one of us to destroy both, they will target whichever is weaker. So we make sure we're never weak. We can't guarantee that." Frustration bled into her words. "We're fighting against the void itself, against forces we barely understand." "Then what are you suggesting?" His amber eyes fixed on her. "That we break the bond? I don't know if we can, but we could distance ourselves, stop being so ... double quote," she trailed off, unable to continue. "So in love?" His voice was quiet, dangerous. "Stop being together? It might save your life. It would destroy it." He stood, moving to the window despite his lingering weakness. "You think I could go back to how I was before? Living in darkness, feeling nothing? You've ruined me for that, Seraphina. You've shown me what it means to be whole." She rose, crossing to stand behind him. "And you've shown me what it means to be loved, but love isn't enough. Not against what's coming. Then what is?" "I don't know." Her voice broke. "I don't know, and it terrifies me." He turned, pulling her into his arms, holding her with all the strength he could muster. "We will find a way, together. We've survived this long, haven't we?" "Barely, but we did. And we'll keep surviving." He tilted her face up to his. "I will not give you up. Not to the void, not to fear, not to destiny itself. You are mine and I am yours, and nothing will change that." She wanted to believe him, wanted to sink into his certainty and let it wash away her doubts. But something dark had taken root in her heart, a whisper that sounded like truth. One of them would die. The only question was who, and whether love would be enough to stop it. The answer came sooner than either expected. A messenger arrived at dawn, breathless and terrified. The void had launched another attack, but not here. At the moon court, Seraphine's home. She was packed and riding within the hour, Lord Alpha beside her despite his protest that he was still too weak. She had simply looked at him and said, "Then we're both fools," and he had smiled despite everything. They reached the moon court by nightfall and found it burning. Silver towers that had stood for millennia were crumbling, consumed by darkness that ate at their foundations like acid. Void creatures swarmed through the streets, attacking anyone they found. And at the court's heart, where the lunar flame had burned eternal, there was only shadow. "No," Seraphina whispered, horror draining the color from her face. "The flame, if it goes out, the barriers fall. Everything falls. Then we stop them." Lord Alpha's voice was steel. He had pushed his body beyond its limits to get here, and pain radiated through every nerve, but he did not care. "Where is the flame kept?" "The sanctum. Deep below the palace." She was already moving, running toward the palace gates, magic blazing from her hands. He followed, his wolf form erupting despite the agony it caused, and together they tore through the void creatures like a storm. They fought their way down spiral staircases and through ancient corridors, each step taking them deeper into the heart of the moon court. Finally, they reached a massive door carved with lunar symbols. It hung open, broken. Inside, the sanctum was vast and circular, its walls lined with mirrors that reflected moonlight in infinite directions. At the center, the lunar flame flickered weakly, nearly consumed by the darkness that surrounded it. And standing before it, wreathed in shadow, was a figure Seraphina knew. Mother? Her voice was barely a whisper. The Shadow Queen turned, and though her face resembled Seraphine's mother, her eyes were empty voids. My daughter, you've finally come home. What have you done? Seraphine's magic crackled around her hands. What have you become? What I always should have been, powerful, free. The Shadow Queen gestured to the dying flame. For too long, our people have hidden behind light and duty. But the void offers so much more, true power, eternal life. At what cost? Does it matter? The Queen's smile was terrible. Join me, Seraphina. Together, we could rule everything. Leave this wolf behind. He has only made you weak. Lord Alpha growled, a sound that resonated through the chamber. Seraphina stepped forward, placing herself between him and her mother. He has made me strong, she said quietly. He has taught me that love is not weakness, that sacrifice means something, that some things are worth fighting for, even if we fall. How disappointingly naive. The Shadow Queen raised her hands, and darkness erupted toward them. Seraphina met it with Moonlight, the two forces colliding in an explosion of energy that shook the sanctum. Lord Alpha lunged, his wolf form massive and terrible, but shadow creatures materialized to block his path. He tore through them, relentless, fighting to reach Seraphine's side. The battle was brutal and desperate. Mother against daughter, light against dark, love against corruption. Magic filled the air until it was hard to breathe, until reality itself seemed to bend. But Seraphina was younger, stronger, and she fought not for power, but for everything she loved. Slowly, impossibly, she began to push her mother back. You cannot win, the Shadow Queen hissed, her form beginning to fracture. The void will consume everything, not while I'm alive to stop it. Seraphine's voice rang with conviction. She raised her hands, calling every drop of her power, every fragment of moonlight she could reach. Mother, I'm sorry, but I will not let you destroy everything. The lunar flame blazed suddenly, responding to her call. Light poured from it in a torrent, filling the sanctum, burning away shadow. The Shadow Queen screamed as it touched her, her form disintegrating. You will regret this, she whispered, her voice fading. The void remembers. It always remembers. And then she was gone. Silence fell. The lunar flame burned bright once more, steady and eternal. Lord Alpha shifted back to human form and limped to Seraphine's side. She stood trembling, tears streaming down her face, staring at the place where her mother had been. She's gone, Seraphina whispered. I killed her. You saved everyone. He pulled her into his arms, holding her as she broke. You did what had to be done. It doesn't make it hurt less. No, it doesn't. He kissed the top of her head. But I'm here, and I'm not leaving. She clung to him, and he held her through the storm of her grief, her guilt, her pain. And when dawn finally came, painting the sanctum in shades of gold and silver, they still stood together, unbroken, unbowed, but marked forever by what love had cost them. The journey home was quiet. Seraphina had stayed long enough to help her people begin rebuilding, to ensure the lunar flame would be protected, but her heart was heavy with sorrow and doubt. Lord Alpha watched her carefully, seeing the way she had retreated into herself, how she flinched at shadows that weren't there. Talk to me, he said one evening as they camped beneath the stars. What's there to say? Her voice was hollow. I killed my own mother. You stopped a monster from destroying everything. She was still my mother. Tears slipped down her cheeks. Somewhere beneath the corruption, she was still the woman who raised me. And I ended her. He moved to sit beside her, pulling her against his chest. You did what I would have done. What anyone who loved their people would do. It was an impossible choice, and you made the right one. Then why does it feel so wrong? Because you have a heart. Because you're not a monster. He tilted her face up to his. You're the strongest person I've ever known, Seraphina. and I am honored to stand beside you." She kissed him desperately, seeking comfort in his touch and the solid reality of his presence. They made love beneath the stars, slow and tender, clinging to each other as if they could hold back the darkness through sheer force of will. But even as they whispered words of love and promise, neither noticed the shadow that watched from the forest's edge. Neither heard the whisper on the wind that spoke of betrayal yet to come. When they finally returned to Lord Alpha's territory, something had changed. The air felt heavier, charged with a tension neither could name. His people greeted them warmly, celebrating their victory, but there was unease in their eyes, questions unspoken. It was his second-in-command, Marcus, who finally came to him privately. "My lord, there are concerns." About the princess, Lord Alpha's eyes narrowed. "What concerns? She is powerful, yes, but she also carries darkness now. The people saw what she did, killing her own mother. They wonder what else she might be capable of." Marcus hesitated. "There are whispers that the binding has made you weak, that you would choose her over your people of force." Rage flared hot in his chest. "I would choose both. And I will hear no more talk of this. My lord, enough." His voice was command and warning. "Seraphina saved us all. She sacrificed everything, and I will not tolerate anyone questioning her loyalty or her heart." Marcus bowed and left, but the damage was done. The seed of doubt had been planted, and Lord Alpha knew it would grow. His people had always trusted him absolutely, but now, for the first time, they questioned his judgment because of her, because of love. Seraphina felt it too. The way conversations stopped when she entered rooms, the sidelong glances, the whispers that followed her through corridors. She said nothing, bearing it with quiet dignity, but he could feel her pain through their bond, could sense the way it was breaking her apart piece by piece. "They hate me," she said one night, staring out the window at the moon. "They fear you. It's different, is it?" She turned to face him. "Maybe they're right too. I killed my mother without hesitation. What does that make me? A warrior, a protector." He crossed to her, gripping her shoulders. "Don't let their fear poison you. It's not their fear that poisons me." Her silver eyes were bright with tears. "It's knowing that I'm coming between you and your people, that loving me makes them doubt you. I don't care what they doubt, but I do." Her voice broke. "You are their lord, their leader. They need to trust you absolutely, and they can't while I'm here." Horror dawned in his chest. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying maybe we were wrong. Maybe the binding was a mistake. Maybe—" "Don't." He pulled her against him desperately. "Don't you dare say it. We are not a mistake. This love is not a mistake, even if it costs you everything. You are everything." His hands framed her face, his amber eyes burning into hers. "I would burn the world for you, Seraphina. Do you understand? I would let kingdoms fall, let empires crumble, if it meant keeping you safe. That's what terrifies me." Her tears fell freely now. "Because I would do the same for you. And that kind of love ... It's dangerous. It's selfish. Then we're both damned." He kissed her fiercely. "And I don't care." But even as they clung to each other, both knew the truth. The world was demanding they choose love or duty, heart or kingdom. And neither knew if they were strong enough to refuse. The choice was made for them. A week later, an emissary arrived from the Council of Lords, the ruling body that governed all territories. The message was clear and brutal. Lord Alpha was summoned to answer for his actions, for binding himself to a foreign princess without council approval, for allowing his judgment to be compromised by emotion. And if he refused to appear, they would declare him unfit to rule and strip him of his title. "Let them try," he snarled, crumpling the summons in his fist. "You have to go." Seraphine's voice was calm, but her eyes betrayed her fear. "If you don't, They'll destroy everything you've built. I don't care about politics, about titles, but your people do. They need a leader they can trust. And right now, double quote, she trailed off, unable to finish. Right now, they question me because of you. His voice was bitter, angry, but not at her, never at her. I won't give you up, Seraphina. I won't stand before them and pretend this was a mistake. Then don't pretend. She moved to him, taking his face between her hands. Tell them the truth, that you love me, that we're bound. But make them see that it hasn't weakened you, it's made you stronger. And if they don't believe me, then we face whatever comes next, together. He wanted to argue, wanted to refuse to play their political games, but she was right. His people needed reassurance, needed to see that their Lord was still the man they had always trusted. So he agreed to go. But he refused to go alone. If they want to judge me for loving you, he said, then they can do it while looking at both of us. The council convened in the ancient Hall of Lords, a massive stone structure that predated any living memory. 12 lords sat in a semicircle, each representing their territory, each wielding power that could reshape nations. And at the center, Lord Alpha stood with Seraphina beside him, both dressed for battle rather than politics. The accusations came fast and sharp. He had broken ancient law by binding himself without permission. He had endangered his people by forming an alliance based on emotion rather than strategy. He had shown weakness, putting one woman above the good of all. Lord Alpha listened without speaking, his face impassive, until finally the head lord asked, "What say you to these charges?" He stepped forward, his presence commanding every eye. "I say you are all blind fools who have forgotten what it means to fight, to sacrifice, to believe in something beyond power and control." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. The headlord's expression darkened. "You dare? Yes, I dare." His voice cut through the noise like a blade. "You sit here in your comfortable seats, judging me for actions you could never understand because you have never loved anything more than your own ambition. You ask if I put Seraphina above my people. I ask why that should be a choice I'm forced to make." He turned to gesture at her, and she stood tall, moonlight seeming to gather around her despite the enclosed space. This woman saved my territory. She brought knowledge and power that helped us survive an attack that would have destroyed us all. She fought beside my warriors, bled beside them, and when her own mother became a monster, she did what none of you would have the courage to do. She ended it, and in doing so, showed she is capable of killing those she loves. One lord interjected, "What's to stop her from turning that power against us?" "Me," Lord Alpha's eyes blazed. "I am what stops her. Just as she stops me from becoming the beast I could be. We balance each other. We make each other better. And if you cannot see that, then you are not fit to lead." Silence fell, heavy and tense. Finally, Seraphina stepped forward. "My lords, I understand your fear. My power is great, and yes, I have done terrible things. But I have never used my gifts for conquest or control. I have only ever sought to protect." She paused, then added softly, "I love your Lord Alpha with everything I am. And I would die before I let any harm come to him or his people." "Pretty words," another lord said coldly. "But how do we know they're true?" "Because I offer you proof." She raised her hands, and moonlight blazed from her palms. "I will submit to a truth binding, ancient magic that makes lying impossible. Ask me anything, and I will answer. My heart will be laid bare before you all." Lord Alpha's head snapped toward her. "Seraphina, no. That magic is dangerous. It's necessary." Her eyes met his, pleading for understanding. "If this is what it takes to prove I'm not a threat, then I'll do it." The council conferred briefly, then agreed. The ritual was prepared, and Seraphina knelt in the center of a circle drawn with silver, her hands bound with threads of pure moonlight. The magic settled over her like chains, and her body went rigid as the binding took hold. "Ask your questions," she said through gritted teeth. They did. Every fear, every doubt, every suspicion was voiced and answered. "Do you seek to control the Lord Alpha?" "No." "Do you plan to use him to gain power?" "No." "Would you betray his people to save your own?" "Never." "Do you truly love him, or is it merely the binding that makes you claim so?" At this question, tears slipped down her cheeks. "I loved him before the binding," she whispered. "From the first moment I saw him, something in my soul recognized its match. The binding only made tangible what was already true, that we are meant to be together in this life and whatever comes after." The lords looked at Lord Alpha, and they saw the truth written plainly on his face. This was not manipulation or weakness. This was love in its purest, most powerful form. When the binding was released, Seraphina collapsed. Lord Alpha was there instantly, catching her, holding her against his chest as she trembled with exhaustion. "Enough," he said quietly, but his voice carried absolute authority. "You have your proof. Now make your judgment." The council deliberated for what felt like hours. Finally, the head lord spoke. "We find no evidence of treachery or corruption. The binding, while unusual, appears to have strengthened rather than weakened you both." He paused. "However, we require assurance that your loyalty to your people remains absolute." "It does." "Then prove it. Lead an expedition against the Void's main stronghold. End this threat once and for all. Do this, and your bond will be recognized. Your union sanctioned." Lord Alpha wanted to refuse. The task was nearly impossible, a suicide mission disguised as opportunity. But he looked at Seraphina, saw the hope flickering in her exhausted eyes, and knew there was no other choice. "We accept." As they left the Hall of Lords, Seraphina leaned heavily against him. "That was a trap," she said quietly. "They're sending us to die." "I know." He tightened his arm around her. "But what choice did we have? We could run. Disappear together. Build a life somewhere far from all this." For a moment, he was tempted. Imagined a life of peace, just the two of them, no duties or expectations. But he shook his head. "That's not who we are. We're fighters, protectors, and we don't run, even if it kills us." Even then, he stopped, turning her to face him. "But it won't. We're going to survive this, Seraphina. We're going to win. And when we do, no one will ever question us again." She searched his face, then nodded. "Together, always." They sealed the promise with a kiss, there in the fading twilight, two souls bound by magic and love and destiny itself. And in the shadows, the void watched and waited, hungry for what was to come. If you believe love can conquer destiny, tap that like button and join our family beneath the moonlight. Preparation for the expedition took weeks. Lord Alpha gathered his finest warriors, men and women who had fought beside him for years, who would follow him into darkness without question. Seraphina called upon what remained of the Moon Court's forces, mages skilled in lunar magic who had sworn to stand with her. Together, they formed an army unlike any the world had seen, warriors of earth and moon, steel and magic, united by a common goal, to find the Void's heart and destroy it. But even as they trained and planned, Lord Alpha felt something changing within him. The corruption he had suffered was not entirely gone. At night, he dreamed of shadows whispering promises. In battle, he felt something dark responding to his rage, urging him to give in, to become the monster he had always feared lurked beneath his control. He told no one. Not even Seraphina, though he knew she sensed his turmoil through their bond. He couldn't burden her with this. She had enough weight to carry. But secrets have a way of emerging at the worst possible moments. They marched into the blighted lands at dawn. a vast wasteland where the void's influence had turned fertile earth to ash and dying trees to twisted sculptures of shadow. The sky above was perpetually gray, and the air tasted of decay. "This place feels wrong," one of his warriors muttered. "Because it is," Seraphina replied, her magic glowing softly around her hands. "The void has been feeding here for decades. The land itself has been corrupted. Can it be healed?" Lord Alpha asked. She hesitated. "Maybe, if we stop the source." They pressed deeper, fighting off void creatures that emerged from the ash like nightmares made flesh. Each battle was brutal, each victory hard-won. And with every fight, Lord Alpha felt the darkness within him growing stronger, whispering that he could end this faster if he just let go, just surrendered to the power waiting beneath his skin. 3 days into the march, they reached the Void stronghold, a massive fortress carved from living shadow, its walls shifting and impossible to comprehend fully. Before its gates stood an army of darkness, thousands strong, waiting. "This is suicide," Marcus breathed. "No," Seraphina said, her voice steel. "This is where we make our stand." The battle that followed was chaos incarnate. Magic and steel clashed against shadow and corruption. Warriors fell and rose again, refusing to yield. Seraphina blazed like a falling star, her power devastating, while Lord Alpha tore through enemies in his wolf form, unstoppable and terrible. But the darkness was overwhelming. For every creature they destroyed, 2 more appeared. They were losing ground, being pushed back, and Lord Alpha could feel his warriors' hope beginning to fail. That's when the voice came, clear as crystal in his mind. "Asterisk, let me help you. Give in. Just for a moment. Let me show you what true power feels like." Asterisk, he knew it was the corruption. Knew it was the void trying to claim him, but he was so tired, so desperate to protect his people, to save Seraphina, to end this nightmare. Just for a moment, what harm could it do? He let go. Power exploded through him, dark and intoxicating. His wolf form grew massive, monstrous, shadows writhing across his fur. His eyes burned not with amber, but with void-black emptiness. And when he moved, it was with speed and strength beyond anything he had possessed before. He became death itself. Void creatures fell before him like grass before a scythe. His warriors cheered, thinking he had found new strength. But Seraphina knew better. She felt the corruption through their bond, felt him slipping away from her, and horror froze her blood. "No," she whispered. "No, please, not this." She tried to reach him through their connection, tried to pull him back, but the darkness was strong. It had been waiting for this moment, waiting for him to weaken enough to take. Lord Alpha turned, and when his void-black eyes found her, she saw no recognition, only hunger. He launched toward her, moving faster than thought. She barely raised a shield in time, moonlight clashing against shadow in an explosion that threw them both backward. Around them, the battle paused as warriors from both sides recognized what was happening. The Lord Alpha, their leader, had been consumed. "Please," Seraphina called out, tears streaming down her face as she dodged another attack. "Fight it. I know you're still in there. Remember who you are. Remember us." But he did not hear. Or if he did, the darkness smothered his response. She could kill him. Her magic was strong enough. One focused blast and she could end this, end the corruption before it spread further. It would be the logical choice, the right choice, but she had already killed her mother. She could not kill him too, would not. So instead, she did something far more dangerous. She dropped her shields entirely and opened their bond as wide as it would go, letting him feel everything, her love, her pain, her absolute refusal to give up on him. She poured her own life force into him through their connection, moonlight battling shadow within his very soul. "You are Lord Alpha," she said, her voice carrying power despite her tears. You are wolf and man and protector. You are the one who taught me that love is not weakness. You are mine, and I am yours, and nothing, not the void, not destiny, not darkness itself, will take you from me. For a moment, nothing changed. He continued his assault, corruption burning through him like wildfire. Then, somewhere deep in the void black of his eyes, a flicker of amber appeared. Seraphina, he gasped, his voice distorted, agonized. Run, please, I can't control. I'm not running. She stepped closer, her hands reaching for him, even as shadow writhed across his skin. I'm staying. I'm fighting. And you're coming back to me. I'm lost. No. She cupped his monstrous face between her hands, moonlight burning against corruption. You're just temporarily misplaced. And I will always find you. She kissed him then, pressing her lips to his despite the danger, despite the pain it caused as shadow tried to consume her too. But her love was stronger. Her magic blazed through their connection, pure and cleansing, burning away corruption like morning burns away night. He screamed, the sound both wolf and man, and something caught between. His body convulsed, shadows fighting against the light, and for a terrible moment she thought she had failed. That she would lose him after all. Then the darkness shattered. Lord Alpha collapsed in her arms, gasping, his form shifting back to human, his eyes amber once more. She held him as he shook, as tears of pain and relief streamed down both their faces. I'm sorry, he choked out. I'm so sorry. I thought I could control it. She wrapped him gently. You're back. That's all that matters. Around them, the Void Army had fallen into chaos. Without the corrupted Lord Alpha to lead their assault, the creatures began to retreat, dissolving back into shadow. But the victory felt hollow, because they all knew the truth now. Lord Alpha could be turned, could be used as a weapon against them. And as long as the corruption lingered in his blood, he would always be vulnerable. We can't go on like this, he said later as they made camp in the ruins of what had once been a village. The darkness is part of me now. What if I lose control again? What if next time you can't bring me back? Then we find a way to remove it completely. Seraphine's jaw was set with determination. There has to be something, some magic, some ritual, or we break the bond. His voice was quiet, defeated. If we're not connected, the corruption can't reach you. Can't use you against me. Don't. Her eyes flashed with anger and fear. Don't you dare suggest that. I'm trying to protect you. And I'm trying to protect you. She grabbed his face, forcing him to meet her eyes. Breaking the bond will kill us both. You know that. We're too deeply connected now. Then what do? We do what we came here to do. We find the void's heart and we destroy it. End the source, end the corruption. And if that doesn't work? She was silent for a long moment, then said softly, then we face it together. Whatever happens, we don't run, we don't separate, we don't give up. We fight until the last breath, hand in hand. He pulled her into his arms, holding her so tightly it hurt. I love you. Even if that love destroys us both, it won't destroy us. Her voice was fierce against his chest. It will save us. I have to believe that. But neither mentioned the fear that haunted them both, that sometimes love was not enough, that sometimes darkness won. They rested for a day, tending to wounds and gathering strength. The surviving warriors looked at Lord Alpha differently now, with a mixture of loyalty and wariness. He had saved them, yes, but he had also nearly killed them. Marcus approached him at sunset, his expression troubled. My lord, the men are talking. They're afraid, I know. They want to know you won't turn again, that you're in control. I can't promise that. Lord Alpha's voice was raw with honesty. The corruption is still in me. I can feel it, waiting. Then maybe we should retreat, regroup, find another way. There's no other way. He turned to face his second. This is our one chance. We're too deep in void territory to retreat safely, and if we leave now, they'll only grow stronger. We press forward or we die. Those are the only options. Marcus studied him for a long moment, then nodded. Then we follow you to the end, even if I become the monster. Even then, a grim smile touched Marcus's lips. Because we know there's a woman who can bring you back. Lord Alpha glanced toward where Seraphina sat among the moon court mages, light gathering around her hands as she helped heal the wounded. She saved me, he said quietly. She saved me so many times in so many ways. Then don't let it be for nothing. Win this fight. Give us all something to hope for. I'll try. That's all any of us can do. They marched at dawn. What remained of their forces, fewer than half who had started this journey. The fortress loomed before them, closer now, and as they approached, they could feel reality itself beginning to fray. The ground beneath their feet felt insubstantial. Colors bled into each other. Sounds came from directions that should not exist. The void's heart is warping everything around it, Seraphina explained, her voice tight with concentration as she used her magic to stabilize their path. It's trying to unmake us before we even reach it. Can you hold it off? For a while. But not forever. They pressed on, fighting through impossible geometry and creatures that hurt to look at directly. Time lost meaning. Minutes might have been hours. Hours might have been seconds. Warriors began to falter, their minds breaking under the strain. We're losing them, Marcus shouted over the chaos. Then we move faster. Lord Alpha shifted to his wolf form, letting his more primal instincts guide him through the madness. Follow me, don't think. Just move. They ran, a desperate charge toward the fortress gates that finally stood open before them. And beyond those gates, in a throne room carved from pure absence, sat the void itself. It had no true form. Was and was not. Existed and did not exist. Looking at it caused pain, caused minds to fracture, but Seraphina forced herself to focus on what was important, the heart. Somewhere within that writhing mass of unbeing was a core, a source that could be destroyed. There, she gasped, pointing to a spot that seemed darker than the surrounding darkness. That's what we need to reach. Then we reach it. Lord Alpha's voice was grim. He turned to his warriors. This is where we make our stand. For our people, for our future, for everyone we've lost and everyone we're fighting to save. They charged. The battle was indescribable. Reality broke, unreformed around them. Warriors aged and de-aged in heartbeats. Magic turned inside out. But they pressed forward, inch by bloody inch, until finally Seraphina and Lord Alpha stood before the void's heart. Together, she said, taking his hand. Together, he agreed. They struck as one, moonlight and wolf fury, magic and strength combined through their bond. The void screamed, a sound that existed beyond hearing, and the heart began to crack. Light poured from the fissures, real and true light, burning away darkness, but the void was not finished. In its death throes, it lashed out, wrapping tendrils of pure corruption around Lord Alpha, trying to drag him down, trying to turn him one final time. No! Seraphine's scream was primal. She grabbed him, her magic blazing, but the void was too strong. It was pulling him in, consuming him, and she could feel through their bond that this time he would not come back. She had one choice, one terrible, beautiful choice. I love you, she whispered, and then she did what her mother had done, what warriors had done since time began. She made the ultimate sacrifice. She threw herself between him and the void, taking the full force of its corruption into her own body. Agony beyond comprehension tore through her as darkness flooded her veins. But she smiled through it because Lord Alpha was free, was safe. Sarah, Seraphina, his roar shook the fortress. He caught her as she fell, her body already beginning to dissolve, consumed from within. No, no, no. Stay with me, please. Had to protect you, she gasped, blood on her lips. Always. Had to protect you. You can't leave me. We're bound. If you die, I know. Her hand touched his cheek, so gentle. But better ... we both die free. Then you live as their weapon? I don't want to be free without you. Tears streamed down his face. You are my freedom, my light, my everything. Then carry me ... with you. Her silver eyes were fading, moonlight dimming. Live, love again. Be ... happy. I can't. You will. She smiled, and for a moment she was radiant once more. Promise me. He wanted to refuse, wanted to rage against the unfairness of fate. But she was dying, and these were her last moments, and he would not spend them in anger. I promise, he choked out. I love you. I will always love you. I know. Her voice was barely a whisper. That's why ... this doesn't end. Love never ends. And then she was gone, dissolving into moonlight that spiraled upward, and through the cracks in the void's heart, her sacrifice the final strike needed to destroy it completely. The fortress shattered. Reality snapped back into place. The void's army crumbled to ash. Victory at the cost of everything. Lord Alpha collapsed, holding empty air where she had been, and his howl of grief echoed across the blighted lands. The bond between them had not broken. It transformed, became something else. He could still feel her, not as a living presence, but as an eternal truth. She was in the moonlight, in the wind, in every breath he took, gone but never truly absent. His warriors gathered around him, silent and sorrowful. They had won, had saved the world. But the price had been devastating. Marcus knelt beside him. My Lord ... double quote, she's gone. Lord Alpha's voice was shattered. She saved me, saved us all. And she's gone. Then we honor her. Marcus's voice was firm. We rebuild. We remember. We make sure her sacrifice means something. Lord Alpha looked up at the sky, where the moon shone brighter than it ever had before, and he knew she was there, watching over him. Yes, he said finally, strength returning to his voice. Yes, we honor her. He stood, and though grief weighed heavier than any armor, he stood tall, because she had believed in him, had loved him, had given everything so he could live, and he would not let that gift be wasted. The journey home was long and silent. Lord Alpha walked at the front, his eyes distant, but there was purpose in his steps. When they finally reached his territory, his people lined the streets, cheering their returning heroes. But when they saw his face, saw the grief etched into every line, the celebrations quieted. He stood before them all and told the truth. Told them of Seraphine's bravery, her sacrifice, her love. Told them that the void was destroyed, but the cost had been devastating. And he told them that they would build a memorial in her honor, a place where moonlight always touched, where future generations could remember the princess who loved so fiercely she gave her life to save them all. The people wept with him. And in their tears he found strange comfort. Days became weeks. Weeks became months. The world healed slowly, green returning to the blighted lands, light pushing back shadow. Lord Alpha ruled as he always had, with strength and justice, but there was a gentleness to him now, an understanding of what truly mattered. He never took another lover, never even considered it, because part of his heart lived in the moonlight now, and he was content to leave it there. But he did not wallow in grief. He lived. He laughed with his warriors. He helped rebuild villages. He taught young fighters and listened to children's stories. He became not just a lord, but a legend, the wolf who loved the moon so much he carried her light within him forever. And every night he would stand on his balcony and look up at the sky, at the moon that shone so bright, and he would whisper, "I love you. I'm still here, still fighting, still living because you asked me to." And though no voice answered, he felt warmth in his chest, a certainty that transcended death. She heard him. She was proud of him. 1 year after her death, on the anniversary of their victory, he returned to the grove where they had performed the binding ritual. The moonlight was especially bright, casting everything in silver, and as he stood in the circle's center, he felt her presence stronger than ever. "I miss you," he said to the night. "Every day, every moment, but I'm keeping my promise. I'm living, and I'm trying to be the man you believed I could be." The moonlight intensified, and for just a heartbeat, he saw her, translucent and beautiful, smiling at him with infinite love. "You already are," her voice whispered on the wind. "You always were." And then she was gone again, but hope bloomed in his chest because he understood now. This was not an ending. Death was not the final word. Love continued, transformed but unbroken, eternal as the moon itself. He would see her again. Someday, when his time came, they would reunite. But until then, he had work to do, people to protect, a world to help heal. He left the grove as dawn broke, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. And though tears still came sometimes, though the ache of loss never fully faded, he walked with his head high, because she lived in him. And every choice he made, every kindness he showed, every moment he chose love over fear, she lived. And so their story continued. The memorial was completed 3 months later. A circular garden on the highest point of his castle, open to the sky where moonflowers bloomed eternal, and a statue of her stood with arms raised, calling down moonlight. It became a place of pilgrimage where people came to pray for love, for courage, for hope. Lord Alpha visited every evening, sitting beside the statue, telling her about his day. It brought him peace. One evening, as he sat in meditation, he heard small footsteps. He opened his eyes to find a young girl standing nearby, clutching a moonflower, her eyes wide and uncertain. "My lord?" she said timidly. "Is it true that the moon princess loved you enough to die for you?" He smiled gently. "Yes, it's true. My mama says that's the greatest love there is. Your mama is wise." He gestured for her to sit beside him. "But it's not just about dying. It's about choosing each other every day, even when it's hard, even when it hurts. That's real love." The girl considered this, then asked, "Do you think she's really in the moon, watching?" He looked up at the sky where the moon hung full and bright. "I know she is. Then she must be very proud of you." His throat tightened with emotion. "I hope so." The girl placed her moonflower at the statue's base, then ran off, leaving him alone again. But her words stayed with him, a gift he had not known he needed. Life continued. Seasons changed. Lord Alpha grew older, silver threading through his dark hair, but his strength never truly faded. The binding, though transformed by death, still connected him to moonlight, still gave him power beyond mortal limits. He became a teacher, training new generations of warriors. He became a diplomat, helping to forge alliances between territories. He became a grandfather figure to countless children who grew up hearing stories of the Lord Alpha and his moon princess. And through it all, he carried her with him, not as a weight, but as wings. 10 years after her death, on a night when the moon was full and the air smelled of moonflowers, Lord Alpha stood once more in the grove. He was older now, his body marked by time and battle, but his eyes still held that amber fire. "I kept my promise," he said to the moonlight. "I lived. I loved again, not romantically, but I loved my people, my warriors, the children who look up to me. I found joy even in grief. I became more than the sum of my pain. The moonlight pulsed, and he felt warmth flood through him, her approval, her love, unchanged and unchanging. But I'm tired now, he admitted softly. I fought for so long, carried on for so many years, and I miss you. Not with the desperate ache of fresh grief, but with the steady longing of a heart that knows where it belongs. The wind picked up, carrying the scent of moonflowers and something else. Her scent, the one he remembered from when she lay in his arms. I'm not asking to give up, he continued. I would never dishonor your sacrifice that way. But I'm asking, when my time comes, will you be there? Will we find each other again? The moonlight blazed suddenly, so bright it was almost blinding, and he heard her voice clear as if she stood beside him. I have been waiting for you, she whispered. Every moment of every day, time means nothing here. And when you finally come home to me, we will have eternity together. No more battles, no more sacrifices. Just us in love and peace at last. Tears streamed down his face, but he was smiling. Then I'll finish what I started here. I'll make sure everything we fought for continues. And when it's done, when I've given everything I have to give, I'll find you. I'll be watching, she promised. I'm always watching. And I'm so proud of the man you've become, my love. So very proud. The light faded slowly, gently, like a lover's last caress. And Lord Alpha stood alone in the grove once more, but he was not lonely, because he carried certainty now, bright and unbreakable as the moon itself. They would be together again. Love truly was eternal. He returned to the castle and threw himself into his work with renewed purpose. He established schools to train not just warriors, but healers and scholars. He created councils where common people could voice concerns directly. He opened his territory to refugees from other lands, offering sanctuary to any who needed it. You're building something beautiful, Marcus observed one day, now gray-haired and weathered, but still loyal. A legacy that will outlast us all. I'm building what she would have wanted, Lord Alpha replied. A world where love and strength aren't opposites. Where power is used to protect, not control. Where everyone, regardless of birth or status, has the chance to become their best self. She would be proud. I know. He smiled. She told me so. Marcus didn't question it. By now, everyone in the territory knew that Lord Alpha still communed with his lost love, that the bond between them had transcended death itself. Some called it madness, most called it beautiful. The years flowed on like a river, carrying Lord Alpha forward, even as his body grew weaker. He trained a successor, a young woman named Elena, who had both his strategic mind and Seraphine's compassionate heart. He taught her everything he knew, preparing her to lead when he no longer could. Why me? She asked one evening as they reviewed territorial maps. Because you understand what truly matters, he said simply. Power isn't about domination, it's about service. And you have a servant's heart paired with a warrior's courage. That's rare. That's precious. I'm afraid I'll fail them. Fear is natural. But you won't fail. Do you know how I know? She shook her head. Because you care enough to be afraid. The leaders who fail are the ones who think they have all the answers, who never doubt themselves. But you question, you listen, you grow. That's what will make you great. Elena bowed her head, overcome with emotion. I won't let you down. I know you won't. He placed a hand on her shoulder. And if you ever need guidance, go to the memorial garden. Sit beneath the moon. You'd be surprised what answers you can find in the silence. On his 70th birthday, the territory threw a celebration unlike any in living memory. People came from across the realm to honor the Lord Alpha, who had saved them all, who had loved so deeply and ruled so well. There was music and dancing, food and laughter, and through it all, Lord Alpha sat on his throne with a gentle smile, accepting their gratitude with grace. But when the night grew late and the crowds dispersed, he slipped away to the memorial garden, to the statue of Seraphina that had weathered 10 years of seasons but still looked beautiful in moonlight. "We did it," he said softly, settling onto the bench beside her statue. "We built something worth protecting. Something that will last long after I'm gone." The moonlight seemed to embrace him, warm and comforting. "I'm ready now," he continued. "Whenever you are, whenever it's time. I've lived a full life, a good life, and I've loved every moment because you taught me how." He sat in peaceful silence, and for the first time in years, he felt truly content. Not happy in the way he had been when she was alive. That kind of joy was not meant for a world where she didn't exist. But content in the knowledge that he had honored her memory, had made her sacrifice mean something. The seasons turned once more. Winter came, blanketing the territory in snow that sparkled like diamond dust under moonlight. Lord Alpha grew weaker, his body finally succumbing to age and countless old wounds. He spent more time in his chambers, though he still insisted on receiving visitors, on listening to problems and offering wisdom. Elena ruled in his stead now, with his blessing and guidance, and she ruled well, just as he had known she would. One night, as the first snow of winter fell outside his window, Lord Alpha felt a change, a loosening. His bond to this world was fraying, and rather than fear, he felt anticipation. He summoned Elena to his bedside. She came immediately, her eyes bright with unshed tears, because she knew, as everyone knew, that his time was near. "Don't cry," he said gently. "This is not an ending. Merely a transition. I'm not ready to lose you," she whispered. "You won't lose me. I'll be in every lesson I taught you, every story that's told about our victory. I'll be in the moonlight that guides you home." He took her hand. "And when your own time comes, many years from now, perhaps you'll see me again, along with her, the Moon Princess." "Yes," his smile was radiant despite his weakness. "She's waiting for me. I can feel her calling." Elena gripped his hand tighter. "Then go to her, my lord. Go with our love and our gratitude, and give her our thanks for everything she sacrificed." "I will." He closed his eyes, exhaustion pulling at him. "Rule well, Elena. Rule with love. That's the secret, you know. Love is always the answer. I'll remember." As the night deepened, Lord Alpha's breathing grew shallower. Elena stayed beside him, holding his hand, while outside, the moon rose full and bright, painting everything in silver light. In his final moments, consciousness flickering like a candle flame, Lord Alpha felt something shift. The weight of his body fell away, the pain vanished, and suddenly he was standing in the grove again, but it was different, more vivid, more real, as if the world he had lived in was merely a shadow of this place. And there, standing in the center of the sacred circle, bathed in moonlight that seemed to come from within her as much as from above, was Seraphina. She looked exactly as he remembered, young and radiant, her silver eyes shining with tears and joy, her smile wide enough to contain all the love in the universe. She wore the white dress from their binding ritual, and the moonstone on her brow pulsed with gentle light. "Hello, my love," she said softly. "I've been waiting for you." He moved toward her without thinking, and suddenly he was young again, his body restored, his strength returned, but none of that mattered. Only she mattered. "Seraphina," he breathed, and then he was holding her, really holding her, solid and warm and real in his arms. "You're here. You're really here. I told you," she whispered against his chest. "Love never ends. It only transforms." He pulled back just enough to look at her, drinking in every detail of her face. I missed you every single day. I know I felt it all. Every moment of grief, every victory, every time you sat beside my statue and told me about your day. She touched his cheek, her fingers gentle. You did so well. You became everything I knew you could be. I kept my promise. You did more than that. You built a legacy, created a world where love is strength, not weakness. Her eyes shone with pride. I have been so proud watching you. I only did what you would have done. No, she shook her head. You did what only you could do. You took the worst moment of your life and transformed it into purpose. That's extraordinary. Around them, the grove began to change, expanding, becoming something beyond physical space. Other figures appeared in the moonlight. His mother, his father, warriors who had fallen in battle, and so many others he had loved and lost. "What is this place?" he asked in wonder. "Home," she said simply. "The place souls go when they've finished their earthly journey, where love gathers all who earn their rest." She took his hand. "And now you're here. Finally. We have all of eternity together now. No more battles?" "No more battles, unless you want them," she grinned. "There are realms to explore, wonders beyond imagining. We can do anything, be anything, together." He looked around at this impossible, beautiful place, at the people he had loved gathered to welcome him. Then he looked back at Serafina, at the woman who had changed everything, and he knew with absolute certainty that this was right. This was where he was meant to be. "Then let's begin," he said. "Show me everything." She laughed, the sound like music and moonlight, and laced her fingers through his. "Come on, my fierce wolf. Our adventure is just starting." And as they walked together into the light, into whatever came next, the moon above shone brighter than it ever had before. Down in the mortal world, those who looked up would swear they saw two figures dancing in the moonlight, a wolf and a princess, eternally intertwined. In his chambers, Lord Alpha's body drew its final breath. Elena felt his hand go still in hers, and though tears fell, she was smiling, because she had seen it, the moment his expression transformed from pain to peace, from longing to fulfillment. He had found what he had been searching for. She stood and moved to the window, looking up at the impossibly bright moon. "Thank you," she whispered, "for giving him back to her, for letting love win." And though no voice answered, she felt a warmth in her chest, a certainty that they heard her, that somewhere beyond the veil, two souls were finally truly home. The territory mourned their lord with all the ceremony and honor he deserved. They built a second statue in the memorial garden, Lord Alpha and Serafina side by side. Hands joined, faces turned toward each other with expressions of infinite love. It became a symbol of hope for lovers everywhere, proof that not even death could separate those truly meant to be together. Elena ruled with the wisdom he had taught her, and under her guidance, the territory flourished. She never forgot his lessons about love and strength, about serving rather than dominating. And whenever she faced difficult decisions, she would go to the garden, sit beneath the moon, and ask for guidance. And she always found it. Because love, once established, never truly fades. It echoes through generations. It inspires strangers. It changes the world in ways both large and small. Lord Alpha and Seraphine's story became legend, then myth, then something more, a truth that transcended time. Parents told it to their children. Lovers whispered it to each other under the moon. Warriors carried it into battle as a reminder of what they fought to protect. And on nights when the moon was especially bright, when moonflowers bloomed with particular beauty, people swore they could see them, two figures dancing in the light, so clearly in love that it hurt to witness and healed to remember. The Alpha Lord's touch had burned like fire in moonlight, but that burning had transformed everything it touched, leaving behind not ashes but gardens, not pain but purpose, not death but eternal life. Because that is what love does. It burns and it heals. It destroys and it creates. It ends and it begins again, forever and always, as constant as the moon, as fierce as the wolf, as unstoppable as two hearts that refuse to be separated. Their story became more than a tale. It became a promise, a reminder that in a world of darkness and uncertainty, of pain and loss, love remains. Love endures. Love conquers. Not because it is easy, but because it is true. And truth, like the moon, cannot be extinguished. It can only shine brighter, calling those lost in darkness toward home. Years became decades. Decades became centuries. The territory Lord Alpha had protected evolved into a kingdom, then an empire. But the memorial garden remained untouched, sacred, a place where time seemed to move differently, where the moonlight always fell just right, where those in need of hope could come and remember that love, real love, never dies. Poets wrote verses about them. Artists painted their story on canvas and carved it in stone. Musicians composed symphonies that tried to capture the bittersweet beauty of their sacrifice and reunion. But the most powerful tributes were the simplest, the young couple who held hands beneath the moon and promised to love each other with even a fraction of that intensity. The warrior who chose mercy over vengeance, remembering that strength without compassion is merely cruelty. The ruler who listened to her people, understanding that true power lies in service. Every act of love, every moment of courage, every choice to be better rather than bitter, all of it echoed Lord Alpha and Seraphine's legacy. All of it proved that their story had not ended with death. It had only just begun. And somewhere beyond the veil, in a realm where moonlight and starlight dance eternal, two souls walked hand in hand through gardens that never faded, laughed together over memories of battles won and lessons learned, and loved each other with an intensity that would have shattered mortal hearts. Do you ever miss it? Lord Alpha asked one day as they sat beside a river that flowed uphill, because in this place, impossibility was merely suggestion. The mortal world, the fighting. Serafina leaned against his shoulder, perfectly content. Sometimes I miss the intensity of it, the way every moment felt precious because we knew it could be our last. She paused, then added, but I don't miss the pain, the fear of losing you. The constant battle against darkness. We won, though. In the end, we won. We did more than win. We transformed losing into victory. We proved that love is stronger than death, stronger than corruption, stronger than fear itself. He kissed the top of her head. I would do it all again. Every moment of pain, every battle, every sacrifice. If it meant finding you, binding myself to you, loving you even for those few years we had, I know. So would I. She tilted her face up to his. But I'm grateful we don't have to, that we have this now. Eternity together with no more farewells. Only hellos, he agreed. Only this. They kissed, and around them the realm responded, flowers blooming, stars brightening, the very fabric of existence celebrating their love. Because that's what happens when two souls meant to be together finally unite completely, irrevocably, eternally. The universe itself rejoices. And back in the mortal world, those sensitive to such things felt it, a warmth in the chest, a catch in the breath, a sudden certainty that somewhere, somehow, love was winning. It always had then. It always would be. The Alpha Lord's touch burned like fire and moonlight. And in that burning, the world was forever changed, not by destruction, but by transformation. Not by ending, but by beginning anew. This is the power of love. This is the truth of connection. This is the promise written in moonlight and sealed with sacrifice, that two hearts bound together can never truly be separated. That love, once given freely and completely, becomes eternal. That death is not the end. It is only the beginning of forever. And so their story continues, whispered from generation to generation, carried on the wind, written in the stars. A reminder to all who hear it that love is worth fighting for, worth dying for, worth living for, because in the end, love is all that remains, all that matters, all that saves us. The Alpha Lord and the Moon Princess proved it, and their legacy shines on, bright as the moon, fierce as the wolf, eternal as the love that bound them. Forever and always, until the stars themselves burn out. And even then, even in the darkness beyond darkness, their love would remain, a light that cannot be extinguished, a truth that cannot be denied, a story that will never end. Asterisk, if their story touched your soul, if you felt the power of love conquering destiny, then carry this message forward. Share it with those who need hope. Let it remind you that even in your darkest moments, love remains possible. Redemption remains within reach. And happiness, true happiness, is not found in the absence of pain, but in the courage to love despite it. Asterisk, asterisk, subscribe to keep these stories alive. Like, if you believe in love's eternal power, comment with your own stories of love and loss, of sacrifice and survival, because every story matters. Every hurt deserves to be heard. Asterisk, asterisk, and remember, you are not alone. In this vast universe of stars and shadows, your love, your light, your choice to keep going despite the pain, it matters. You matter. Asterisk, asterisk. Thank you for walking this journey with Lord Alpha and Seraphina. May their story remind you that love never truly dies. It only transforms, becoming something even more beautiful than before. Asterisk, asterisk, until we meet again beneath the moonlight. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. The end, asterisk, asterisk.